Folks. Welcome to the February 12th, 2021 Farm Service Program updates. I am Corrie Bowen. I'm your Wharton County Extension Agent here in Wharton, Texas. I've had a long-standing relationship with USDA, and I'm happy to be a part of this event and helping to coordinate the planning and promotion of this event and registration. So we have a very large event today, right at 550 people registered. So I ask that everyone turn off their videos. I will, and my co-host will do our best to turn off your videos for you. And as well as your mics. The reason we do this is to maintain a good bandwidth. If we have too many going, then you're gonna see things slow down. So if y'all could please turn off your video. If not, I'll turn it off for you. And questions are same way. We won't activate mics for questions. But if you have a question, please place your question in the chat box. This will help make for a smooth meeting. And to each presenter, we'll orchestrate when they'll take questions, and we'll monitor the chat box. So that's how we're going to take in questions. At this time, it's 9:02. I want to hand this over to Mr. Eddie Trevino. He is our acting state executive director, and he's going to cover the Farm Service Agency operations and how we're operating during the pandemic. Good morning, Mr. Trevino.
Good morning, Corey.
Right, I can see your screen well. Here.
Can you hear me okay too?
I can hear you well.
Fantastic. Well, if you're ready for me to begin, I can get it started.
Yes, sir. Take it away.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Corrie Bowen and his assistants and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension for assisting the Farm Service Agency here in Texas in setting up this webinar today. I hope everyone is safe and warm wherever you are. I think this winter blast has probably touched every corner of Texas this morning and late last night. Here in College Station, it's a chilly 29 degrees. So hopefully where you're at, you're warm and you're safe. And our intent this morning over the next 55 minutes is to provide you with an update of what's going on basically with Farm Service Agency in Texas, to put it plainly. How are we operating? How are our office operating to best serve you as our producers in Texas? And then take some time to provide you some important program updates on some of the critical programs that we have going on right now that may be of interest to you, and some deadlines that are coming up. And so it's not intended to cover every program that we administer. Obviously, with the time that we have allowed this morning, that just won't be possible. But we hope that we provide you with some critical information and maybe some information on how you can follow up on some of the other programs that may interest you, that you may have questions for. So at this time, I'm gonna share my screen so that I can share with you our presentation this morning that I have. And so if Corey, if you can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, Mr. Trevino, I can see it well.
Very good. Okay, and again, this morning I'll be making a couple of presentations, obviously on our office operations and what our status is there, and then we also have Joshua Coleman, our state outreach and communications coordinator, that will be providing you some information about programs as well. So, but first, I want to tell you a little bit about how we're operating. Obviously, this pandemic has affected all of us, and we've been trying to, for almost the past 12 months, continuing to provide programs, critical programs that are needed by our producers across the state for operations, capital that may be needed. So we've been continuing to provide programs within the limitations that we have. In Texas, we have 174 offices. That includes our state office here in College Station. And I can tell you that today, around 5 or so offices across the state are able to take in-person appointments. So let me just talk to you about a little bit about appointments. We continue to be open for service to all our customers, but not in person. And sometimes that gets a little confusing for our customers. I'd be a little confused as well. We're open for business. In very limited cases, like I said, in only 5 of the 174 can we actually accept a visitor into the office with an appointment. So for most of us, we're likely having to do business with USDA at our local level, either by phone, by email, or some type of drop box that maybe our local service center leadership has put in place. But what we're trying to continue to operate, and we have been for the past 12 months during this pandemic. But we would encourage you, as the need arises for you to participate, or you have questions, before you make that trip to your service center like you've been accustomed to prior to the pandemic, we do ask that you call ahead and schedule that appointment, find out the status perhaps, but make that appointment. We at USDA are using what we call a phased data-driven approach to determine which service centers are open for in-person appointments. And like I said, at this point, out of the 174, as of today, only 5 really can accept an in-person appointment in that service. But these things change as the pandemic numbers and data changes for counties. We are monitoring that on a daily basis, and we're through our local leadership and including state leadership, we try to move those counties through the phases to try to ensure program delivery at the best and most efficient way we can do it, and keeping our customers and our employees safe. As I said, the appointments for our service centers, if you're fortunate today to be in one of those 5 counties where you can actually come in for a scheduled appointment, before you are allowed in the service center, you are asked some pre-screening questions just to make sure that there are no health concerns or recent travel, and that we're adhering to social distancing. At this time, if you are a visitor that is allowed into a service center, you are required to wear a face covering during that appointment. Now, we do have a link on farmers.gov where you can find your service center. And so if you don't know who your service center is or where your service center is located, we do have a link on farmers.gov that you can locate the service center that serves your farming operation. In addition to the appointments and the phone calls and emails, nationally, we do have a 1-877 toll-free number that is available to all customers. And the 1-877 number, as you can see there on the screen, is open for operation between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. The intent of that call center is primarily for calls that we receive for CFAP and the QLA program, Quality Loss Assurance, Loss Assistance Program, to try to address those questions from customers when our customers cannot reach their local representative, their local FSA offices. There are a variety of reasons why. Sometimes you may call a service center there in your county, and either you get a busy signal or it just rings and rings and rings. A lot of times it's due to just the sheer volume of calls that are coming into that service center, that the telecommunications infrastructure just can't handle all those calls at the same time. So you may think that no one's there, or that no one's answering the phone, or whatever. There are a variety of reasons. Again, the majority of our staff are rotating into those offices, working telework status, working from home or other locations because of the COVID pandemic limitations that we're required to work within. So there may be a variety of reasons. So this 1-877 number is available nationally for individuals to call should you have questions. Maybe you need some initial assistance with the CFAP program or QLA, now that we're administering QLA. If there's some initial questions that you have that perhaps you can't get into your local office, then perhaps you can avail yourself of this toll-free number. We also have some other tools that we can use to serve you electronically. Online services that are available to our customers include software referred to as Box and OneSpan. That functionality enables our customers to sign and share FSA and NRCS documents with USDA Service Center staff in just a few clicks. So that's another option that's available, and does not necessarily require you to download any special software. But if you're interested in utilizing those tools, the local office can help guide you along on how to avail yourself of that service, so that you don't have to come into the office to sign a document like we have in the past. Perhaps you can sign a document on your computer. I've used it to sign a document just on my smartphone. It was fairly easy, but it does take a little coaching or a little guidance to get started if you're not familiar with Box and OneSpan. We're also utilizing Microsoft Teams to hold virtual meetings such as this, either
yeah, I heard that
group meetings, or we can have one-on-one meetings with our producers. We can also use Microsoft Teams. That software, again, doesn't require the producer to download any special apps for Microsoft Teams. We can use it as long as they have internet connection and a web-based browser. We can utilize Microsoft Teams with you to have a meeting to discuss your needs to sign up for a program or otherwise. Now, there is a Teams app you can download should you wish to do that, but I want to emphasize that's not required for you to download that Microsoft Teams app to interact with us virtually and our service centers should you wish to do that. On our communication side, we continue to use GovDelivery. Producers and owners and others interested in keeping up to date with important FSA deadlines and information, they're strongly encouraged to sign up for GovDelivery if you haven't already. This instant communication system allows newsletters, deadline reminders, and bulletins to be sent right to your email address. And so if you haven't signed up for GovDelivery, we certainly encourage you to do that. Producers interested in GovDelivery can sign up at farmers.gov/subscribe for those email communications. Now, we also have another feature if you haven't availed yourself of this tool, and that's the texting feature. If a producer wishes to receive text messages, they can sign up by simply texting TX, your county name, to this number 372-669 that's on your screen. For example, if you're a Wharton County producer and you want to receive text messages, type in TX Wharton and send that text to 372-669, and that will enroll you into text messages sent to you for important deadlines. One last thing I want to talk about on office operations is you can also go on farmers.gov. As you can tell, farmers.gov is becoming a central hub for us for centralizing information that could be critical for our producers and our customers. Farmers.gov has a link there where you can check on the operational status of your office. Like I said, if you can't call and find out, perhaps you can check here first if you have good internet connection and ability to use a web browser to check on the status of your county office. Corey, I believe that's my update on office operations, and obviously we can entertain questions towards the end of the webinar.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Trevino. So yes, folks, you can enter your questions and we'll enter them. Would you like to answer them now or hold on those, Trevino?
It may be best if we just hold to the end. That way we can get some in program. That way we don't take away from program updates as well. So
all right. Well, we are right on time, Mr. Trevino, and we're going to move into our next presenter, Mr. Joshua Coleman. So, Mr. Coleman, if you could share your screen as I introduce you. Very good. Our next presenter is the Outreach and Communications Coordinator with Texas USDA Farm Services Agency. And title of his presentation is the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, also known as CFAP. And also he'll discuss Quality Loss Adjustment, QLA program.
All right, thank you, Corey. And just to verify, you can hear me and see my presentation, correct?
Yes, I can. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Corey. All right, so good morning, everyone. Glad you're all able to join us today. As Corey and Ms. Trevino mentioned, I am Joshua Coleman. I am the State Outreach Coordinator for Texas Farm Service Agency. This morning, I'll just give you all a brief overview of our Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, in addition to our new Quality Loss Adjustment Program. So first, with the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, last month, additional assistance was made available under the CFAP 2 program. USDA has suspended the processing and payments under that Coronavirus Food Assistance Program additional assistance and has halted implementation until further notice. In local offices, you can continue to file applications for the additional assistance. The deadline as of now is until February the 26th. And so if you have any information or any questions regarding additional assistance, please reach out to your local county offices. In the coming days, USDA intends to take additional steps to bring relief and support to all our parts of food and agriculture during the coronavirus pandemic, including by ensuring producers have access to capital, risk management tools, disaster assistance, and other federal resources. Additionally, implementation of provisions that were included in the Emergency Coronavirus Relief Act of 2020 have not commenced. And so just be on the lookout for any additional communications regarding the CFAP program that will be coming to you. Next, we'll discuss the Quality Loss Adjustment Program. This is a new program that's designed to provide assistance for crop quality losses that were a consequence of hurricanes, excessive moisture, floods, qualifying droughts, snowstorms, and wildfires that occurred in calendar years 2018 and 2019. Sign up for this program began on January the 6th and continues through March 5th of 2021. Eligible crops for the Quality Loss Adjustment Program include those for which federal crop insurance is available, or those crops for where non-insured crop disaster assistance program, excluding value loss crops and honey. Crops that suffer quality loss due to a qualifying disaster event are eligible, in addition to those crops that incurred a 5% or greater quality discount due to the qualifying disaster event. Crops that incurred a nutrient loss are eligible, in addition to those crops that may have been sold, fed on farm to livestock, or may have been in storage at the time of the application. And the 5% quality loss is due to all eligible causes of losses combined across those crops. Ineligible crops will include those that are not grown commercially, crops that are not intended for harvest, those not intended for grazing, subsequent crops that do not meet the double cropping provisions, in addition to volunteer crops. Ineligible crops also include prevented planting crops, first-year seeding of forage crops, crops that were destroyed before harvest other than by an eligible cause of loss, and any immature fruit crops. In addition to those crops, any grazed crops, honey, aquaculture, floriculture, mushrooms, ornamental nurseries, Christmas trees, and turfgrass sod are also ineligible for the QLA program. Some particular interest that we've seen has been surrounding cotton. And so with cotton, if it was not harvested, it is not eligible for QLA. So with other crops, in addition to meeting other eligibility requirements, crops must have been harvested in order to be eligible. In terms of qualifying disaster events, some qualifying disaster events include qualifying drought, which includes the related conditions of heat, excessive wind and hot wind, excessive moisture, flooding with the related conditions of silt and debris, hurricanes with the related conditions of excessive wind, excessive rain, flooding, tornadoes, and tropical storms, snowstorms with the related condition of blizzards, and wildfires with the related conditions of heavy smoke. Local county committees, they are responsible for determining whether a qualifying disaster event caused the loss based on weather data and their knowledge of weather-related losses in those areas. For losses related to drought, counties that were rated by the U.S. Drought Monitor of having a D3 or higher level of drought intensity occurring in 2018 and 2019 are eligible. D3 or a higher year rating is year specific. And so they may have occurred anytime during the year in which the loss was incurred. Producers with crops in counties that did not receive a qualifying disaster declaration or designation may apply for QLA with supporting documentation showing that the crop quality loss was directly affected by a qualifying event. For example, supporting documentation might include weather data from a reputable source. You can find information on the drought designations and the presidential emergency disaster declarations, in addition to those Secretary of Disaster designations, at farmers.gov/quality-loss. In addition, you can track past and current drought conditions through the U.S. Drought Monitor, and you can find it at that link that's listed on your screen. In terms of ineligible causes of losses, you have those that are not due to a qualifying disaster event that are not eligible. Losses that occurred after harvest or occurred in storage are ineligible. Losses due to insect infestation or drifting herbicide are ineligible. And losses that are deemed to be due to a failure to follow good farming practices are also ineligible causes of loss. As a condition of quality loss adjustment program benefits, producers are required to purchase crop insurance or obtain NAP coverage on the crop for the 2022 and 2023 crop years. The coverage must be purchased at the 60, 100 level or equivalent, and the linkage requirement will apply to all crops that receive a QLA payment. Producers who obtained crop insurance or NAP coverage for the crop in accordance with the requirements for the Wildfires and Hurricanes Indemnity Plus program are considered to have met the requirement to purchase crop insurance or obtain NAP coverage for the QLA program. If the linkage requirement is not met for a crop, producers are required to refund the quality loss adjustment payment received for the crop plus interest. In terms of QLA payments, they will be calculated based on the type of crop, whether they are a forage crop or a non-forage crop, and the type of documentation that is submitted by the producer. Quality discounts that are associated with a loss that have been mitigated, such as high moisture and insect infestation, are not eligible. FSA county committees, they are responsible for determining whether a loss could have been mitigated. The Quality Loss Adjustment Program will consider all quality discounts that are recognized by the industry. However, quality discounts that are associated with the loss, again, they could have been mitigated by following normal farming practices, are not eligible. And again, since those county committees have knowledge of the resources available in the county for producers to protect and maintain the crop, the county committee is responsible for making a determination as to whether a loss could have been mitigated. Verifiable documentation includes records that can be verified by FSA through an independent source. They will be used to substantiate the amount of quality loss. They must be dated and show the final disposition of the crop and be seasonal or crop specific for the commodities produced more than once in a calendar year. For grain crops, the date between the harvest and the sale of the affected production, and for all of the crops, verifiable documentation must come from tests and analyses conducted within 30 days of harvest, unless the county committee determines the record is representative of the affected production at the time of harvest. For non-forage crops, these will include all crops that are not intended for forage, and then any crop with intended use other than forage. And on those crops, producers must have suffered a loss due to quality with verifiable grading factors directly related to a qualifying disaster event. So examples of those crops would be corn that's intended for grain or soybeans that may be intended for grain. The affected production is the producer's ownership share of harvested production adjusted to standard moisture of an eligible crop that experienced both a quality loss due to a qualifying disaster event and at least a 5% quality loss due to all eligible disaster events combined. and the affected production must have suffered a loss due to quality and have verifiable grading factors and quality factors. So as Eddie mentioned earlier, the customer call center, those interested in the quality loss adjustment program can reach the customer call center between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, with the exception of federal holidays. It will allow you to work one-on-one with an employee that is familiar with the program, and they can assist you with completing the application, and they can directly connect you with your local service center. There are also language interpretation services available through the call center. And so for English, you'll press 1 or to identify a non-Spanish language you may need. And for Spanish speakers, they can press 2 to receive additional information in another language. To apply, producers will submit one application for their entire operation nationwide in their recording county office. The application will include all eligible crops suffering a quality loss. If a producer is applying for losses sustained in more than one crop year, a separate application is required for each year. So after you submit your application, producers will have 14 days from signing their quality loss adjustment application to submit verifiable documentation to support their quality loss. Producers have 60 days from signing an application to resolve any issues with their application. Payments will not begin to be issued until after the program sign-up ends, and that will allow FSA to calculate county averages and the total scope of QLA payments that will be required. And for additional information on the QLA program, you can visit farmers.gov/quality-loss, and that will allow you to find that information that's available online. And with that, Corey, I will turn this back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. All right, we do have some questions coming in, but I believe we'll hold those to the end. And but we do have some QLA questions that did come in. So we're going to move right along. I think we're holding to our schedule just right. We're going to bring back Mr. Trevino. He's our acting state executive director. And we'll share your screen, Mr. Trevino, and we're going to learn about our farm loan programs.
All right, Corey, hopefully you can see my screen.
I can see it.
Fantastic. Okay, so we want to provide you some update on as well on farm loan programs that the Farm Service Agency administers. One of the immediate changes that have been implemented by USDA is the temporary suspension of debt collection on past due and foreclosures for distressed borrowers under the Farm Storage Facility Loan Program and the Direct Farm Loan Programs administered by the agency. So we're temporarily suspending debt collections on past due accounts and foreclosures for those distressed borrowers. Again, this is a temporary measure that has been implemented, and we're actively administering this change. Again, temporary change. The temporary change will also allow us to suspend non-judicial and judicial foreclosures, debt offsets, wage garnishments, and referral of foreclosures to the Department of Justice. And again, this is nationally, not just Texas. And USDA will work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to stop any judicial foreclosures and evictions on accounts that were previously referred to the Department of Justice. Again, this is a nationwide temporary implementation. We also have extended some deadlines for producers who have responded to loan servicing actions on their loans, which includes loan deferral consideration for those that are financially distressed and delinquent borrowers. From time to time, if a producer is needing some servicing actions such as rescheduling their notes or be considered for rescheduling or deferral of their payments, there are certain deadlines that are associated with those requests. And so at this time, the department has extended those deadlines for producers to be able to respond to those servicing actions that are required. In addition, we've also, for the guaranteed loan program, included some flexibilities there for our commercial lenders who participate in the guaranteed program to assist their customers with some servicing actions as well. For those of you that aren't familiar with the FSA lending programs, loan programs, just as a summary, there are basically two types of loans that the agency administers, and that's on the direct side, the direct loans, which these are loans that are made and serviced by FSA personnel, FSA loan officials. These loans are also associated with some supervised credit actions where our loan officers work hand in hand with our customer and trying to build those farm business plans and such. And those funds for those direct loans come directly from the U.S. Treasury, obviously allocated by Congress through the normal appropriations process. But there's a difference in direct loans and guaranteed loans in that the guaranteed loan, a commercial lender or farm credit participating lender makes those loans and services those loans, and FSA guarantees in most cases up to 95% against any loss. The maximum loans amounts for these two types of loan for our direct farm ownership, for example, our maximum loan there is $600,000. We also have a microloan feature that allows for a loan for perhaps our smaller operations or smaller credit needs that require less paperwork, less underwriting for those type of credits. And so we've also offered that in the direct farm ownership up to $50,000. Our direct farm operating type loans has a maximum of $400,000. That too has a microloan feature for our smaller operations or our smaller credit needs that can be utilized that requires less paperwork. We also have a unique program for our youth that participate in 4-H and FFA type organizations to finance their modest projects. We can also make loans to youth up to $5,000. Our emergency loans continue to be available for those counties that have received a secretarial or presidential declaration, disaster declaration. Those maximum loans for emergency loans are $500,000. And of course, we have our guaranteed loan program for our larger credit needs that has a maximum of $1,776,000. And that amount is adjusted annually based on inflation. Some general eligibility requirements, and some of these loans that I just talked about have some specific eligibility criteria that we may not fully cover here this morning, but do invite you to visit with your local FSA loan officer if you have more specific credit needs that we may just not cover here this morning, because we understand that every credit need is unique, every operation is unique, and so we may not be able to cover all questions you have here on direct and guaranteed lending. But in general, some of the eligibility criteria is obviously that the customer is unable to obtain credit elsewhere. What does that mean? Well, it means that for whatever reason, and I'll preface that here in a little bit, or qualified statement. Perhaps they don't have the down payment, perhaps they don't meet a commercial lending standard. They're unable to get the credit they need through those sources, through a commercial lender or through farm credit. And so they turn to FSA for that credit need. And that applies to the direct and guaranteed program, that a guaranteed lender wouldn't be able to make the loan without a guarantee for a financial reason. They must be citizens or legal residents. They must possess legal capacity to incur the loan obligation and have acceptable credit history. And that's the qualifying statement I wanted to make, is regardless, a customer has to have acceptable credit history. That's not, if a commercial lender doesn't make a personal loan because they've got bad credit, it's likely that FSA won't make a loan to someone who's got bad credit either. So that requirement is there. Although we understand that in agriculture, things happen beyond a customer's control at times that could cause someone to have slow pay or late pay on their credit history. That could be an exception should circumstances beyond their control cause that delinquency or cause that slow pay on the credit report. But anyway, that's a one-on-one discussion that should be held with your loan officer to see if there's any exceptions that could be considered. The applicant also should be the owner operator or tenant operator of a family farm. Also, the customer cannot be delinquent on a federal debt to meet the eligibility requirements. Have not caused the agency a loss by receiving debt forgiveness, and there are some very narrow exceptions to this requirement here that could be considered. But again, it's a very narrow exception, and again, should be discussed with your FSA loan official. The customer also cannot be convicted or have not been convicted of planting or cultivating or growing, producing, harvesting, or storing a controlled substance within the last 5 years. Now, some general eligibility requirements as it relates to the direct loan program. What I've been talking earlier is basically general requirements for both direct and guarantee, but on the direct loan side, there are some general management eligibility criteria that has to be met by the customer, depending on whether we're talking about a farm ownership or an operating. But they also must have applicable education, training, or farm experience that provides a reasonable prospect of success for the customer. Now, for the farm ownership loan, direct farm ownership loan, the customer must have participated in the operations of a farm or ranch for at least 3 years. Again, participate in the operations of that farm. Again, more details can be discussed one-on-one because everyone may have a different story or different history. Some of the other requirements for an FSA direct loan is we work with the customer, again, to develop a farm business plan, the financials associated with that, balance sheets, cash flow statements. But the farm business plan has to project repayment ability for that loan being requested. There has to be adequate collateral for the loan to cover that loan request. And the customer must agree to take borrower training courses, either for production or financial management, if needed. And also, and this has been a requirement of FSA lending for over 70 years that has been in existence, is a customer must graduate to private sector when their financial condition demonstrates that they could do so. So it's not a program that is intended to be a permanent financial lending source. Once a customer obtains that financial strength, that they're able to then graduate to commercial credit, we do review our accounts for that and ask our customers to refinance with a commercial credit source. Again, that's not until that we have been able to analyze each case and that they have gained that financial strength to be able to do that. Also, a customer cannot exceed the restrictions on years of eligibility. We do have what we call term limits on our loans, and so the customer can't receive more than those years of term limits, being obviously 7 years for a direct operating loan, no more than 7 years of direct operating loans. If they're a beginning farmer, they're allowed up to 10 years of direct operating loans. For our farm ownership, direct farm ownership, a customer cannot obtain a direct farm ownership loan after they've had 10 years outstanding of a direct farm ownership loan. That could be a little confusing. I understand it could be a little confusing for me. So if you are finding yourself in that situation, probably a one-on-one discussion with your loan officer probably would be the best course of action. Just in summary, our direct operating loans, for those again that aren't familiar, can be used to purchase equipment, purchase livestock, pay for operating expenses, to put your crop in, or raise a herd of cattle, whatever, the operating expenses, or refinance certain operating expenses other than existing FSA debt. Farm operating loans are repaid between a term of 1 to 7 years, depending on the need and the purpose. Farm ownership loans can be used again to purchase land, make capital improvements, promote some soil and water conservation, and loan closing related expenses. And these loans can be termed out to no more than 40 years or up to 40 years. Microloans have a little bit different term limit, and that maximum for a microloan is 25 years. Again, microloan for a farm ownership would have a term up to 25 years. We do have some tools that can be available to you, some that you can use at your leisure, at your availability. Again, on farmers.gov, we have a farm loan discovery tool that you can utilize to perhaps, if you're thinking about needing some financing, you kind of know what you want to do, and you're exploring your options for financing, and you think that FSA may be an alternative for you to consider. You do have the farm loan discovery tool that you can utilize. It asks 5 short questions of you, and then it tries to direct you to or guide you to perhaps the appropriate loan that may fit your needs. And then from there, at least you're a little bit more prepared before you pick up the phone perhaps and have a discussion with your loan officer at FSA. Again, more information on the FSA loan programs can be found at farmers.gov/fund. So Corey, I think that's, again, kind of a high level update on farm loans. And again, we can entertain questions at the end if there are any.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Moving right along, we're bringing Joshua Coleman back in. Josh, you share your screen. Again, Joshua Coleman is our Outreach and Communications Coordinator at Texas USDA Farm Services Agency. And we're going to turn it over to Mr. Coleman to speak on the ARC and the PLC programs.
All right, thanks again, Corey. All right, so everyone, we're just going to briefly discuss the agricultural risk coverage and our price loss coverage programs. So these are both key programs of ours that help producers to weather fluctuations in either revenue or price for certain crops. Last year for the 2019 crop year, we paid out more than $5 billion in producers to across the nation, again, to support them and help them get through some of those fluctuations in crop prices. For the 2021 crop year, the sign-up period opened on October the 13th. And the election enrollment deadline is March 15, 2021. So it's a few weeks away. So for those of y'all that have not yet made appointments or made arrangements with your local county offices to get those contracts and enrollments made, reach out to them as soon as you can and go ahead and make some arrangements to get that completed before the application and election enrollment deadline. So for 2021 elections and enrollments, producers, you can elect coverage and enroll all in a crop by crop ARC County or PLC, or you can do the agricultural risk coverage individual contract for the entire farm for the 2021 crop year. Although election changes are optional, the enrollment is required each year of the program, so you need to have a signed contract. If you previously had a multi-year contract on the farm and you decide to make an election change for 2021, it will be necessary for you to complete a new contract. So again, if you are thinking about changing enrollments or elections and you haven't gotten with your office yet, go ahead and make that a priority to go ahead and get those things done. Producers who do not sign an enrollment contract by the March 15th deadline, they will be ineligible for ARC PLC program payment should one trigger for the 2021 crop year. So again, it's vitally important to be working with your county offices to get those contracts completed if you're eligible to participate in the ARC or PLC programs. If an election is not submitted by the deadline of March 15, 2021, the election defaults to the current election for crops on the farm for the prior year. So for crop years 2022 and 2023, producers will have the option and the opportunity to make new elections during those sign-up periods if you decide to keep the same election, or you can change your election for the 2021 crop year. So in partnership with USDA, the University of Illinois, and Texas A&M University, they both offer web-based decision tools to assist producers in making informed, educated decisions using their crop data specific to their respective farming operations. These two tools include the Gardner Farm Doc Payment Calculator and the ARC and PLC Decision Tool. The Gardner Farm Doc Payment Calculator is the University of Illinois tool that offers farmers the ability to run payment estimate modeling up for their farms and counties for ARC County and the price loss coverage program. The ARC and PLC Decision Tool is the Texas A&M tool that allows producers to analyze payment yield updates and expected payments for 2021. Producers who have used the tool in the past should see their username and much of the farm data already in the system if you've used it previously. Some important crop insurance considerations. Producers are reminded that enrolling in ARC or PLC programs, they can impact your eligibility for some crop insurance products. Upland cotton farmers who choose to enroll seed cotton-based acres in ARC or PLC are ineligible for the stacked income protection or STAX plan on their planted cotton acres. And for additional information on those provisions, you can visit the Risk Management Agency's website at rma.usda.gov. Producers who elect and enroll in PLC also have the option of purchasing supplemental coverage option through their approved insurance provider. Producers of covered commodities who elect ARC are ineligible for the supplemental coverage option on their planted acres. Unlike supplemental coverage options, RMA's enhanced coverage option is unaffected by participating in the agricultural risk coverage program for the same crop on the same acres. And you may elect the enhanced coverage option regardless of your farm program election. So for additional information on the ARC and PLC program, you can visit farmers.gov/ARC-PLC, and you can find additional information on the ARC and PLC program. And lastly, this is just a listing of the different websites and resources that we've given to you all today throughout the presentation. And so a lot of, as Eddie mentioned earlier, a lot of these resources you can find on the farmers.gov website, in addition to the links for the ARC PLC decision tools. Additionally, the last link takes you to an Ask the Expert blog on the agricultural risk coverage and price loss coverage program that Dr. Joe Outlaw with Texas A&M completed previously. So this new Ask the Expert blog was posted on yesterday. So for those producers that are interested, we encourage you to visit farmers.gov and read all about what Dr. Outlaw had to say. And with that, Corey, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. All right. So now we're moving into the closing and the questions and answers. And remember, we're utilizing the chat box to collect those questions. Also with us today are other Farm Service Agency staff members, Scott Reed, Brenda Carlson, Jeffrey Dudensing, Raymond Marr, and Raul Garza. So they're available with us today to help answer those questions. FSA staff members, any of you like to address some of the questions that have come through on the chat box thus far?
Corey, I know it looks like maybe some have been answered. Do you see them all? And is there a question that you see that we could perhaps address first that's come in?
So Eddie or Corey, do y'all want me to, I've been kind of monitoring the chat thread. Corey, do you want me to ask some questions?
That'd be great. I have seen that you've been monitoring that. Why don't you cover some of those common questions?
Okay, I thought I'd free you up, Corey. So
that's great.
So one of the common questions that was there, and we appreciate the fact that y'all appreciate this presentation. A lot of hard work and thought went into it. Y'all have asked if the slides are available. We are recording this. Corey is recording it, and we can make the recording available to you. Likewise, if you'd like to reach out to us, we can make the slide presentation available. But I think the recording would be useful for context. So that's one of the common questions. The other common question had to do with box and one span. Eddie, can you kind of revisit your slide just briefly about the box and one span option?
Sure. I sure can. Okay, so we did talk about box and one span, and that tool is available to our customers and our employees, whether you're working with FSA or NRCS. This will allow, for example, if you want to, most documents that you use to sign up for a variety of programs requires your signature. This software allows you to sign electronically without a whole lot of software being needed to be downloaded by you. It does require, though, this interaction by phone, at least with your local FSA official, to let them know you're interested in utilizing box and one span. This allows, number one, for documents to be transmitted electronically, received and transmitted electronically. Then the one span allows the signature feature. And I may have those two backwards, Brenda, but nevertheless, I hope the audience gets my understanding is that the box and one span go together if you want to use it for electronic transmission of documents back and forth, and then the one span allows for the signature feature without a whole lot of software that's needed. there is some authentication that obviously needs to occur, via the phone, and make sure that Eddie Trevino is Eddie Trevino, right? That you're communicating with, but it's very it's not complex, and it's utilized to help. Again, if you want to avail yourself of that feature, you can even sign. I did it. I mean, I was able to sign a document just testing this thing out. Sign a document on my smartphone, and shot it back to the county office. Again, this is used for customers. Agency personnel have their own internal electronic signature features that we use.
Thank you, Eddie. Okay, now we have a question about QLA. We've been asked to provide a specific example of how the QLA program is calculated for cotton.
Okay. Obviously, specific. There's some concern, and obviously, in talking about specific examples with QLA, because there could be variety. But we do have Scott Reed on the call, who's the chief of the program that oversees for Texas the QLA program. And so I'm gonna pitch that question over to Scott and see if he can at least maybe touch a little bit on cotton and how, maybe an example. I'm not sure that we'll be able to satisfy the question, Brenda, but maybe Scott can at least touch on it as it relates to cotton.
Good morning, everybody. On the question on cotton on QLA, we're still waiting for guidance from the national office. We're expecting an amendment or a notice forthcoming any day now for that to actually give us the policy and procedure in writing. Once that's available, it's for public consumption, so everybody will know how the calculation is going to work for cotton. As you know, cotton is marketed different than what other commodities are. And so the national office leadership is working on how to make cotton fit the quality loss program. Cotton is eligible for quality loss. At this time, though, I just don't have a calculation that I can share because I don't have an amendment or a notice from the national office providing the calculation in writing for everybody. And so I cannot step ahead of leadership.
And Scott, we do anticipate some guidance here shortly. So it's just to provide you with the best information we can. That's probably the best course of action, Scott, is to wait on that written directive so that we can provide you the best, so we can provide you all the best information we can. And we're not trying to dodge the question. We just want to make sure we give you the correct answer. And unfortunately, we're not prepared at this moment to perhaps talk about an exact calculation or example of a calculation relates to cotton. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, Eddie, we had a question. I did answer it in the chat thread, but others might have joined late. The question was, is fumonisin an eligible loss for QLA?
Brenda, did you say you answered it okay already?
I did. Fumonisin is an eligible cause of loss if it is a result of a qualifying disaster event. Okay, the next thing that we have, this in regards to QLA, if our cotton gin documentation only shows the price the cotton sold for based on the grading, but does not show a base price, minus deductions equals sales price, what can we use to substantiate the deduction or the loss?
Okay, and then again, that's QLA cotton, right? And so we are, we're just on the edge of our seat waiting for that additional written guidance, Brenda. And so we should have that any day now. And so I don't know that Scott wants to venture into that one again, probably with the same reason he's patiently waiting for that written guidance from our national headquarters on how to exactly do that or how to address that situation. Scott, would you agree?
Yes, sir, Eddie, I do agree. I'm just waiting for guidance from the national office so that we all do cotton the same way across the whole state and the nation as a whole. And so as soon as we have that, it'll be out for the public and all the grower associations, everybody will be on the same page, and we'll get cotton handled. But the main thing is cotton is eligible for QLA. Quality losses are eligible. on cotton, just as the other cover commodities as well. So I just don't have the calculation right now.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay.
And I appreciate everyone's patience, Brenda, on this matter. And I think you said something earlier, Corey. You know, we have to have another call like this specifically, maybe for cotton or another crop to clarify. You know, we'll certainly consider that if there's a need for that.
Okay. Do you foresee any 2021 assistance for losses involving livestock sales?
Oh. Brenda, you know, I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of movement in Congress right now that I wouldn't know, but we have obviously our existing programs. I don't know if they would, the existing program we have at this time for livestock, the LFB and LIP, depending on
Okay.
the county. That's kind of a general question. We have some assistance now for livestock, but I think you prefaced that or you qualified that statement with any help for livestock programs. You know, we have obviously, Joshua talked about CFAP, that it's just on hold at the moment. So I believe we have programs now, but obviously the immediate help is CFAP. It's kind of on hold at the moment, and we'll see what guidance we receive as we go forward.
Right. I'll reach out for further clarification.
Thank you.
Next question. When does a loan become delinquent, i.e. day after due, 60 days? When would the delinquency length, 1 day, 30 days, 90 days, affect the loan eligibility?
That's a very good question, because obviously, you know, the day after it's due, you're past due, right? And so these are terminologies we use within the lending programs of being considered delinquent and being considered past due. You do receive notification of your past due. You may get a phone call the day after. You may get a phone call 30 days after it's due that your payment is due. 90 days past due is then you receive written notification of options that you can avail yourself if you qualify. If you need servicing actions, 90 days after the payment was due, you receive written formal notification. But you are past due the day after. You are delinquent 30 days after the payment is due. Hopefully that addresses their question, Brenda.
Yes, we do have a few questions that are specific to an individual's operation. So I think we'll address those specifically. For the sake of time, I think we have to be mindful and respectful of everybody's day. We have 2 minutes left. We will collect these questions from Corrie and from this meeting and can follow up with individuals. But for one more, we'll try to get a couple more in. If I planted a hay pasture spring of 2019, is it eligible for QLA due to drought?
Okay, good question. I will ask again, Scott, to pitch that question to Scott Reed, see if that can be answered at this time with the guidance that we have.
So I have some follow-up questions. I know that the chat's not a two-way comment, but when the question says hay pasture, we have lots of different types of hay across the state of Texas. And so annually planted hay crops, such as you may plant some sorghum forage for hay, yes, that would be eligible for QLA. Perennial hay, such as coastal hay, and you planted the coastal hay for the first time in 2019, that's not an established crop. It has to be grown for a year. Perennial crops do have to be established before they're eligible for QLA. So if it's a perennial crop such as coastal Bermuda and you just planted it in 2019, then no, it would not be eligible for QLA. But annually planted hay crops, yes, would be eligible that are planted in 2019, such as sorghum forage. So I hope that answers the question.
Scott, it's jigs.
Jigs. So jigs would be like coastal. It would not be eligible for QLA since it was just planted for the first time and it's not established. So perennial crops have to be grown for a year before we cover.
Thank you, Scott. And Corrie, I know that there's some more questions coming in, but I think that wraps up our Q&A session. I'm going to pitch it back to you. And like I said, the team here, Mr. Trevino, we'll get together and we will respond to questions as follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. And yes, we recorded the chat questions, and my secretary Stacy is also recording those so we can follow up. And since we had registrations for this, we do have email addresses to contact those that had questions. So that ends this morning's Farm Service Agency updates. I'd like to thank all our presenters for being available and bringing good quality information to our Texas growers. Any last comments to our presenters?
Corrie, just want to say thank you to you and your team, and thank you to all of you that took the time this morning to listen to our update, and hopefully you found our presentation somewhat valuable. And as Brenda mentioned earlier, we will do our best to follow up on those questions that we've identified in the chat. Thank you all again, and appreciate your time this morning.